something ate a great white shark, a fully grown one, and the only reason we know is a small plastic device that washed up on a beach 4 months later. I want to explain exactly what that device recorded, why it matters, and what it tells us about how wrong our picture of the ocean actually is. This is not just a strange animal event. This is a data problem, a gap in knowledge problem. And the data is genuinely hard to argue with. Let me start with what a great white actually is. Most people hold a rough idea without really sitting with the details. A great white shark is the result of millions of years of the ocean selecting for one thing: hunting efficiency. The largest ones exceed 20 feet and weigh more than 5,000 pounds. Their teeth do not wear out. When one breaks, the next rotates forward. They can detect a single drop of blood spread across a massive volume of water. Tiny organs in their snout feel the electrical pulse of a heartbeat buried under sand. What I find most important is not the teeth or the speed. It is the position. The definition of an apex predator is an animal that nothing hunts. Everything below it shapes its life around avoiding it. Above it, there is nothing. That is what apex means. The ceiling. For as long as marine science has studied great whites, that was the accepted model. Nothing hunted them deliberately, not as prey, not as a meal. That model broke in 2003. A research team off the southwestern coast of Australia ran the first large-scale great white tagging project those waters had ever seen. They fitted a healthy 9-foot female with a data logger. This device does one job. It records depth, water temperature, light levels, and movement every single second. It stores everything internally. On a preset date, it detaches, floats up, and transmits all data to a satellite. 4 months after tagging, the device came back, not via satellite. It physically washed ashore about 2.5 miles from where it was attached. The data was recovered and put on a screen. What it showed was not normal shark behavior. Not even close. The tag logged a drop to nearly 1,900 feet. Great whites are not deep water animals. They live in the upper zone of the ocean, the bright warm layer near the surface. Almost everything they do happens within the first few hundred feet. A sudden plunge to 1,900 feet in minutes is not a foraging dive. It is not curiosity. The list of explanations gets very short very fast. Something was taking her down, something that could reach 1,900 feet quickly and without apparent difficulty. Then came the second number, and this is the one that changes everything. At 1,900 feet off the Australian coast, the water sits around 46 degrees Fahrenheit. If the tag had simply fallen off and sunk, 46 degrees is exactly what you would expect to see. The tag logged 78 degrees. A sustained, stable 78 degrees. At 1,900 feet in water, that should have been close to freezing. A tag does not read a warm, stable interior temperature at extreme depth in frigid water unless it is no longer in the water. It was inside something alive, something with a warm interior that had swallowed the shark, tag and all, and then carried her downward. Now the team had to figure out what that something was. And I want to walk through this carefully because the elimination process is actually the most convincing part of the whole case. First candidate, orca. We know orcas can kill great whites. The temperature reading did not rule them out. The depth did. Orcas do not dive to 1,900 feet. Their most extreme recorded dives fall well short of that. The behavior does not match the body. Second candidate, sperm whale. This one fits the depth perfectly. Sperm whales chase squid to several thousand feet. The largest males exceed 60 feet. A sperm whale's throat could take a 9-foot shark without difficulty. But sperm whales are warm-blooded mammals. Their internal temperature runs around 97 to 99 degrees Fahrenheit. 78 is far too cool for the inside of one. Wrong temperature, wrong diet, out. Third candidates, large sharks, tiger sharks, oceanic whitetips, both aggressive, both opportunistic, but neither grows large enough to swallow a 9-foot great white whole. To consume prey that size completely, you do not need to be slightly larger. You need to be enormously larger. The math would not close. There was even a brief consideration of a colossal squid. That idea did not survive. A cold-blooded invertebrate has no warm interior. Its body temperature is simply the temperature of the surrounding water. No warm cavity, no explanation. One by one, every ordinary answer burned away. And then the team looked at what was left. The answer was so obvious and so strange that it took a while for anyone to say it plainly. What if the animal that ate the shark was another great white? Not a rival of similar size. A great white of a size that most marine biologists had never seriously considered. A shark so large that a 9-foot, 500-pound great white was simply a meal. The temperature is the key to understanding why this works. Most sharks are cold-blooded. Their body temperature matches the surrounding water. But great whites are not most sharks. They carry a rare adaptation called regional endothermy, a specialized network of blood vessels, traps and recycles, heat generated by their own muscles. This keeps their core, their eyes, their brain, and their digestive system warmer than the water around them. Now follow where that leads. A significantly larger great white changes the equation completely. More body means more muscle. More muscle means more heat. More mass means that heat is retained far more effectively against the cold pressing in from outside. Inside the gut of a truly enormous great white, a stable 78 degrees is not a strange reading. It is exactly what the biology predicts. The depth fits too. Great whites have been tracked diving past 3,000 feet in open water. 1,900 feet is extreme for a coastal individual, but well within reach of a very large animal moving through deep offshore water. How large would a great white need to be to swallow a 9-foot shark whole? Researchers estimate the predator needs to be roughly twice the length of the prey. That puts the predator at around 16 feet, weighing more than 2 tons, right at the upper edge of what the species is confirmed to reach. What I find most striking is not the size. It is the silence. Not one person at the surface saw anything. No fin, no disturbance, no photograph. The only reason any of us know this happened is that a piece of plastic drifted onto a beach carrying the data. And here is what most people skip past. Great white predation on other great whites is not a one-time event. Once the team confirmed what the tag was showing, they went back through the broader record. The evidence had been sitting in plain sight for years. Marine biologists have long documented that great whites are cannibalistic. Larger individuals dominate smaller ones at feeding sites. Juveniles are genuinely at risk from adults sharing their water. This behavior even begins before birth. Developing pups consume their unhatched siblings inside the womb. Dead great whites have turned up bearing massive bite wounds that could only have come from the jaws of another great white. Living great whites have been photographed carrying old healed scars in the same pattern. Sharks that were bitten by one of their own and survived. In more recent research, scientists tracking a porbeagle, a smaller relative of the great white, recovered data suggesting the animal was consumed by a larger predator, with a great white among the leading candidates. The pattern keeps repeating across studies and oceans. Being a large, dangerous shark does not place you safely at the top. It means whatever eats you has to be larger and more dangerous still. To me, the food chain most of us picture in our heads is wrong. It keeps climbing into a size range that marine science has barely begun to study. And if we got that wrong about the most studied, most filmed predator in the entire ocean, then we should be asking what else we have wrong. The reason this stayed hidden so long is simple. We have barely looked. The open ocean is almost incomprehensibly large. The Pacific alone covers around 60 million square miles. All the world's oceans together reach past 100 million square miles of water. We have meaningfully explored only a tiny fraction of it. Everything below roughly 1,000 feet is, for all practical purposes, invisible to us. Even when we do study great whites, the numbers are small. The global population sits in the low thousands. The individuals ever fitted with a working data tag represent a fraction of that. We are drawing confident conclusions about an entire species from a few dozen animals. And there is a built-in bias in which animals get tagged. Researchers work near shore. The animals close to shore tend to be younger and smaller. The largest, oldest females live far out in deep offshore water where the research boats are not. This matters beyond curiosity. Great whites are protected across much of the world. The models used to protect them account for fishing pressure and habitat loss. They do not account for great whites being consumed by other great whites. If the largest individuals are quietly removing smaller ones from the population, the actual numbers are more complicated than the models capture. Recovery projections could simply be off. The broader point I keep coming back to is this. We mapped the ocean. We named it. We sorted it into zones and assigned everything a Latin name and a row on a chart. Then we looked at that chart and told ourselves we understood what was in the water. But we are still encountering new species of large marine animals well into the satellite age. Creatures bigger than a person, missed for generations. If we are still meeting animals that size for the first time, then the belief that we have already seen the largest great white in the sea is not science. It is assumption. The ocean holds animals we have never seen, behaviors we have never observed, relationships within species that we have never recorded. So for me, the main thing I take from all of this is the gap. The gap between what we confidently say about the ocean and what the ocean is actually doing. That gap is large. And the data we do have, logged inside one small plastic device that washed ashore in 2003, suggests we should be far more careful about how certain we sound when we describe what sits at the top of the food chain. We placed the ceiling. The ocean did not agree with us.